Hello! It's Thursday. It's 4 o'clock. I'm joined by Adam. What does that mean, Adam?
I'm here, but I'm not hosting. It's weird for me. Like, usually I'm in your chair.
You're all out of control.
I know.
The inmates have taken over the asylum, and I'm hosting. So let's see what goes on today. And yeah, as we can see, we've got our games industry news roundup, which fortunately you are here, and you will be helping us with that, talking us through all the goings on from the week's news. Then we're going to have a bit of you and I checking out the Ascent, which is something to look forward to. And then we're going to be joined by everybody's favourite Ben Joy to talk to us about video game soundtracks. So that all sounds very exciting. But yeah, so let's kick things off with some games industry news, shall we?
Yes, I'm going to be your little newsreader friend. Is that how this is going to work? I'm going to read you some news.
Absolutely, that's what we're going for.
Okay, well, let's do it then. Our first news story today is a story you might have seen, because there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter this week and other social networks. This is about blockchain and NFT games. They're a little bit under fire, and they've been removed by Steam. So games that use blockchain technology or let users exchange NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, or any kind of cryptocurrency, won't be allowed on Steam moving forwards, according to a rule recently added to Valve's What You Shouldn't Publish on Steam list, which they have documented on their website. The change was pointed out by Space Pirate, who's a developer who's working on an NFT-based game, and they said that the change was because the company doesn't allow game items that could have real-world value, and obviously cryptocurrencies, speculatively at least, have real-world value. So it could be a way to avoid controversy around NFTs, because we know that there's a lot of discussion around their environmental impact as well, but also it kind of violates their existing terms of service in terms of financial obligations anyway, and creates problems with them for payment providers like Visa who don't want to deal with crypto payments and those sorts of things. So Steam is obviously one of the most well-known PC game stores, but it's not the only one in the world. And Epic Games Store, who are maybe one of their biggest rivals, have come out and said that they're fine with it. And if you want to launch those games on there, you can do a little bit of tete-a-tete there, shall we say, between the two rivals. And the reaction is pretty mixed. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are very happy to see Steam crack down on these games, both because of the environmental impact, but also because the space is maybe, burgeoning, has quite a lot of people who are maybe don't have your best interests at heart, a lot of get-rich-quick schemes. But there obviously are a lot of people out there as well who are really curious about what NFT and blockchain technology could bring to games and would like to see them be allowed to thrive. So that's the latest. What do you make of this, Dan?
Yeah, it's a big subject. We've obviously talked about crypto in parts on the show previously, and it's definitely certainly in my bubble. I'd say the majority of people are leaning somewhat anti-crypto or anti-NFT, which I can totally get. I'm still somewhat on the fence because I do see some of the idealistic benefits of the kind of the blockchain technology and what that might enable, and some of the sort of more, I guess, wholesome opportunities it might bring. Decentralized ledgers and all these kinds of things is great, but as you say, there's just so many bad faith implementations of it. The environmental impact, whilst there's lots of work being done around that, and there's all sorts of, there is a significant impact in a lot of the mainstream crypto setups. That's certainly undeniable. But is that a reason to completely cancel the good that the technology could enable? As always, it ultimately comes down to the people and the actors participating. Unfortunately, there's, as with any kind of new gold rush, there's a lot of people trying to get purely benefit themselves. So yeah, it's a hot topic, and
certainly is. I think it reminds me of a tweet, and I can't remember who tweeted it, so I'm just going to rip them off and not credit them at all. But someone pointed out recently, real money exists, and we've not had really many games that are about like economies. There's like Eve, and that's it. There's not actually been very many interesting games about real world trading or real world economies and that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see the amount of speculation there is about NFTs. Like, do we need that? It's not been something that
I think that's
jonesing for.
Certainly on the NFT side. I mean, you can. I feel again, my bubble sort of seems to suggest on the on the art side of things, then there are potential advantages like proven ownership and original copies, and maybe things like your original physical artworks can be verified as unique and the original source and things like that. Whereas as soon as you post any of your creative works online, it's just a free for all. Anybody can use it, which they still can with NFTs. But there is their value in that sense of ownership. And equally, all of the other functional benefits of kind of crypto-based games or NFT-based games, blockchain-based games, there's nothing technically that can't be achieved just with good data strategy and proprietary APIs and data storage and everything else. But the distributed ownership of it, I do see a value in. But it's become so grey now, that value and potential is probably rapidly diminishing. So.
Yeah. Our next story is about Microsoft and Xbox Game Pass. So Microsoft have been doing the rounds, releasing some figures and facts about their financial year. And the growth of Xbox Game Pass appears to be slowing as it emerges that Microsoft didn't attract as many new subscribers as it planned to in the previous fiscal year. So the service only grew by 37% during the last year, compared to the target of 48% and the previous year of a massive 86%. It is worth remembering that the previous year, 2020, was a peak pandemic year with things opening up again in 2021, which is why they went from having 86% growth to aiming for 48%. They were expecting a dramatic drop, but it's dropped even further than that. Maybe some interesting theories there about everyone who wants Game Pass has already got it now. It's been such a good deal for so long. There's no one left to convince. But there's no update on how many people have actually subscribed to Game Pass. The last update we got was in January, when the figure was 18 million subscribers in January 2021. What do you reckon, Dan?
I certainly don't think everybody who's going to get Game Pass has got Game Pass, and I don't think Microsoft are naive enough to think, we could achieve this growth, but we can't because we didn't know how many potential customers we had for it. But equally, like you say, kind of the impact of the pandemic, and there's so many variables in that. But also, we tend to look at when we have a target and we miss a target, and we've talked about this a lot. It's like they still achieved 37% growth. That's not like a decline or a failing in any way. It's just not as much, success as they were aiming for. And I'm sure they set themselves an ambitious target. So, I don't think that's an alarming position to be in. Certainly, if we achieve those kind of growth in our business, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. Speaking of Microsoft, Phil Spencer has also been doing the rounds, doing some interviews, and he had a little chat with the Wall Street Journal. And he said the company isn't done acquiring game studios. And this is a direct quote, I've got a few here. We're always looking for the people who we think could be a good match and teams that would be a good match with our strategy. So we're definitely not done. This is in relation to the Xbox Game Studio stable, which currently has 23 development studios. And there's been a number of high-profile acquisitions over the last few years, including Playground Games, Ninja Theory, Undead Labs, Obsidian, and, of course, most famously, last year purchased Bethesda parent company ZeniMax and all the Bethesda studios. So they've been quite aggressive, and it sounds like there's more to come. From
who would be your if you were Phil Spencer's bank account? Where would you be looking to go for an acquisition?
I mean, if you were going to go for a really big swing, which I think Microsoft is in the mood for, I think they're in the mood for big swings. I think maybe you talk to Sega. I think Sega's the one who's like the one that you could maybe pull off, but would also be huge for you to get.
That would be really interesting. That's a good shout. I'll let Phil know that's your recommendation.
Yeah. Just call me Phil if you want some more business advice. I've got this stuff figured out. What about you? Do you have an idea of who you think they should have next?
See, I don't know if they want to. I feel like they need some big wins under their belt first, and they've got quite a decent spectrum from like huge studios and studios with massive investment that they put into them, like Bethesda and even Playground, which has just grown significantly since the acquisition, but haven't actually put anything new out yet. We know there's Horizon 5 is on that's coming out soon.
On the horizon.
On the horizon. I did try to stop myself, but let's roll with it. And the
next week, folks. That's our show.
They've got Fable, which is that's going to be that's not out for a while yet, but there's going to be a lot of expectation on that. But then they've got some of the smaller studios as well. So I guess I would hold tight, get some releases done, gauge where do we land best with these huge swings, or are we getting any success with the smaller ones, and then decide from there.
Wow. So your advice is stop buying, people.
I mean, they're always going to be keeping an eye out, and I guess they've got to be planning 2-3 years plus down the line,
or more nowadays.
Yeah, and they've got access to a lot more data than I have, so maybe they can make some slightly more informed decisions. But I would definitely
they might be slightly better at their jobs than we are at guessing what
yeah, exactly. But I'm sure there's some. I mean, they must have loads of insights, like how is production going with these different teams, and what support are we set up to give them the right support. Basically, get it right with what you've got, and then continue to grow from there. Would be my approach.
Yeah. Next up, we're heading over to the Sony side of the field to talk about some announcements from them. And first up, God of War is now officially headed to the PC. The studio, Santa Monica studio, I should say. Title launches on PC in January 14th is what's currently slated for, 2022. And while this is undoubtedly a marketing tactic to increase hype and pre-orders for the forthcoming sequel, God of War Ragnarok, this is still a move which will excite fans and see the game available to more players than ever before. As of August, there was 19.5 million copies of God of War sold on PlayStation 4, and Sony have previously launched a few games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone on PC, also like this one, well after their initial PlayStation launch, a couple of years down the road. So exciting times for God of War fans, though, and for people who don't have a PlayStation and want to play one of the best games of the last generation, arguably.
Absolutely, completely agree, and it's just good to see another Sony PC venture coming out, and like I say, there is a consistency of them tying it in with the next hype that they're trying to build, which is fair enough. But I'd hope that these titles merit. They bring their own success as well, and perhaps we can start to see that gap between platform exclusive launch and PC availability start to reduce. But good news, great game. So
it's a great game, and we're all looking forward to the sequel. And sticking with Sony, this is kind of our last big news story, and this was dropped just today. This is hot off the press. The trailer for the new Uncharted movie has finally dropped. The movie's been in some form of development for about 10 years now, and it's finally going to actually legitimately exist. You can literally see footage of it now. It stars Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg as his sidekick Sully. And the trailer appears to show scenes which fans will be familiar with, including the bit where Nathan Drake falls out of a plane at high altitude. A lot of action in the trailer, lots of familiar beats. But also, a little bit of trepidation. Video game movies aren't always necessarily the best, and a lot of people have got opinions about how young Tom Holland looks compared to their vision of Nathan Drake. But what do you reckon, Dan? Have you watched this?
Yeah, I enjoyed the trailer. It was a classic Hollywood action-adventure trailer, but well done, high polished. The cast are obviously very talented actors, very funny. I had that same that's clearly Spider-Man, not Nathan Drake, but I like to try and keep an open mind for these things. And looks fun. So I would definitely be checking it out.
We'll do a little play team trip to the cinema, shall we?
Absolutely.
And that's all our major news, but we like to end every week with a little story or two about games for good. And this is our idea, or our belief, I guess, that games can be a powerful force for good in the world, and we like to celebrate things that are positive, social good, environmental good, any of those sorts of things. And Dan, you have our stories this week for Games for Good, is that correct?
Yep, sorry, I'm just fixing the text that I completely ruined on our transition back to big cameras then. So, a couple of things from the world of the games industry that I'm sort of proud with. First being the Green Games Summit that was organised by Yuki. That's been going on the past couple of days, and it's been a fantastic kind of meeting of minds. Some excellent talks from various studios and games adjacent, and even just kind of international organisations on the impact of the games industry on the global climate change crisis. Both taking a perspective, which I found really interesting, on, okay, what can we do as an industry to minimise, eliminate and even reverse the actual impact of games production on the environment? So how can we make it carbon neutral or carbon negative through changes to development practices, the tools we use, the supply chain, all these kinds of things. But then also, just as interesting is the influence games can have on the wider audience. What's the message we can put out there with the games that get created to influencing the billions of people that engage with games around the world? So there's been some really great content from that, which I don't know how much of it is going to be available after the fact, but if you get a chance, do check that out. And secondly, that's been really nice to see is Ubisoft have been working with our friends at Digital Schoolhouse to offer the Assassin's Creed Discovery Tour. Kind of within Assassin's Creed, there is a mode, this Discovery Tour mode, kind of like just allows you to explore, and there's kind of small challenges to discover information and facts around these incredible environments that create. So the latest game, Valhalla, is based in the UK, and they do so much research, and there's so much valuable recreation of what life was like during the era, which remind me off the top of my head, the game is Viking times invading England. Many years ago, I'll completely forget what.
Yeah, I feel that's going to be like the year 900.
It's a lot. It's a long time ago, but but yeah, their faithful recreation provides a great learning opportunity. So, and Ubisoft have offered, I think it's 5,000 licenses to Assassin's Creed Discovery Mode to a number of school establishments around the UK, which are going to be incorporated into the curriculum, which is just such a great way to engage that's a real native environment to engage learners. So yeah, well done Ubisoft, well done Digital Schoolhouse. I think that's a really great initiative, and doing some real impactful games for good work there.
Yep, sounds good.
So that's our news, and now we have our pre-recorded segment, which is Adam and I checking out the Ascent. After this, I'll be joined by Ben J. So thank you, Adam, for joining me on this, and we'll watch you checking out the Ascent.
Hi. Hello and welcome. It's another Etch Play video with me, Adam Burt, and I'm joined by Dan Thomas. And
Hello.
We are checking out the Ascent. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, Adam. And yourself?
I'm okay. So yeah, this is the Ascent. It's available on PC and Xbox. This here is footage from Xbox Series X. It's me playing, and you'll very quickly realise that I'm not very good at this game. But Dan, you've played this as well. What are your thoughts about the Ascent? What do you make of it so far?
I thoroughly liked it. I think it's an absolutely stunning game. Watching this now, I only played like the first level when I checked it out, and I definitely want to go back and play more of it.
Yeah. So it's got that sort of like, it's got quite like an old school camera view, almost like a Diablo, like top down kind of thing. But then visually, it's obviously a lot richer than we maybe used to expecting from games of that caliber. Like, you just saw a really nice looking explosion in the background there. There's lots of nice lighting.
Yeah, I think that's what enamors me to it, is the visual fidelity on this kind of, like I say, kind of more old school style perspective. It's just kind of hits the nostalgia buttons, but also brings it into the modern era. All these cutscenes as well.
Here's my guy. He's got swooshy hair swept to one side. That's what I imagine the future will look like. Everyone with hair pushed over to one side. And it's got kind of like a, I guess, like
cyberpunk aesthetic to a degree. Like there's tech upgrades, there's this horrible world that they live in where corporations run everything and everyone lives in like squalor. But it's quite an interesting little game world. And this launched on Game Pass day one, which is becoming more and more common, but is still a little bit unusual for some games to do. That's probably where you tried it as well, Dan, right? You played it on Game Pass?
Yeah. I think I actually played it on Steam.
Oh, okay.
I think I checked this out when I did a little run of streaming from the week's biggest selling games, and this was one of those. So I actually paid money for it whilst it was available on Game Pass.
Yeah. Financially sound.
That's me.
You're
like
supporting the developers, exactly.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I do really really like this. I'm a big sci-fi fan, and yeah, it's nice.
All that sweet cash that popped out of that Papa Ferrell.
As you would expect.
So this isn't at the beginning of the game. It's basically the first mission, just a little way into it. The game does open up after this. You get like a bit more of a conversation trees with people, a bit more of a kind of branching. What mission do you want to do next? That kind of vibe. Once you get into the open world. But yeah, we just thought we'd show off a bit of it and have some fun. I didn't realise, and Dan, you told me this, I'm sure people might have noticed already, I didn't know you could barrel roll. And I'm not sure if the game told me you could and I just forgot, or if I just never learned that, but I spend a lot of time running away from enemies when diving or rolling would probably be the right thing to do.
So when you start, this is an interesting observation I've had. When you start a game and it opens up and you've got free reign, do you like to just follow the onboarding and the storyline that it's telling you to go, or do you just experiment in that little starting arena and figure out as much as you can?
Oh, I'm dead. I do what I'm told. I'm such an obedient little game player.
See, I'm 50-50. It depends on the style. Like if it's something like this where it's a little bit free reign, I'll experiment. If there's a clear and obvious storyline that it's trying to guide me down, I like to be obedient. But my wife is an absolute experimenter. She wants to be an expert from the minute we start, and it really agitates me when it's like, oh, look over there, there's a box. It's like, just go and open the box. But she's jumping and flipping. And
Yeah, I'm not about that. I'll tell you what I worry as well. My fear is that if I just press a random button, that the button I press might be something like drop a grenade at your own feet. I'll just like be... I'm a bit worried that I'm going to like hurt myself if I...
But is that not the best way to learn? You'll only do that once.
No, I'd rather wait until the game told me it was safe to do it.
Yeah, don't do that in real life, folks.
Yeah. So yeah, you get to see a bit of the visual aesthetic here, which is nice. We're down in like the sewers here, basically. You do get to go upstairs a few levels. I mean, the name kind of implies what you're doing here. You are making an ascent up from the depths of the depraved underworld of the future, up into the towering skyscrapers, eventually, of the rich and powerful.
And if I remember correctly, this is kind of like our job, isn't it? We're like, oh, you've got to go and clear out the pests in the basement of this megacorp.
I think your job is just that you're like a mechanic, but you just bring a gun because you're like, there's definitely going to be stuff down here. Like, my job is to hit things with a wrench, but there'll be stuff on the way that I have to shoot in the face, almost definitely.
This is the future we've got to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm bored for this. This is why when Elon Musk's like, let's all go and live on Mars, I'm like, it doesn't sound that great to me. I know how that ends for me. That ends for me in some sort of Mars coal mine.
Yeah, but look at the haircut you get.
That's true. The haircut is cool. Here you go. You get to see a little bit of the world here. What would you do? What would you want your job to be in the future? You would want to be a mechanic and down in the sewers, or you want to be something a little bit more white collar? Probably white collar, right?
I'd probably be a little bit more...
You want to be a manager?
Yeah, I'll be the coordinator of the sewer cleaners. an interesting question. Yeah, if you were in this kind of future.
So you can see some of the areas are a lot more populated than.
What use would my skills be in this environment?
Oh,
Not very. They're barely of any use in today's environment.
Yeah, I do worry about it sometimes. Like sometimes I wonder about like the apocalypse and if it happened. There's not going to be any need for websites. Like really, I should diversify my skills. I should learn how to figure out which plants in the woods you can eat, or how to build a house, or something.
Yeah.
Maybe if I'm lucky, when the world ends, there'll be just a friendly gang will take me in and treat me like a pet.
My job in the future is to be a gang pet. I like it. Maybe communication would be an interesting thing. Like, there's going to be a lot of perhaps less than happy people, and maybe they need a little bit of motivation.
Motivational speaker.
Yeah. Maybe I can do corporate communications. I'll focus on.
Yeah. So this is a bit of the hub world that you can explore, and it points you at people you can talk to progress the narrative or to do side missions and stuff like that. And yeah, really, you can see the way the lighting really comes together in these sorts of areas. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot of little details that are just nice to explore, and I always like to try and give attention to those little side details that, you know, somebody has spent time on these and thought about it. Should give them some attention and appreciation.
Yeah. Well, this is the Ascent, and we're going to throw it back to the studio. We'll see you on a future Etch Play video. Take care.
Bye. Ben, welcome. That was us checking out the Ascent, and you know what's great is one day I'm going to spend some time and figure out how to get all this set up, because I had to watch that on mute, and I was like, do we wave at the end? How do I know when it's the end? Ben, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. How are you doing?
Yes,
all right?
I'm very good, thank you. I enjoyed the news. I enjoyed watching that video segment on mute, because I don't know what I'm doing and how to figure this whole thing out. But yeah, Ben, you're here to talk to us about video game soundtracks. Is that right?
That is correct. So last week when we checked out The Artful Escape, I made a comment. I was like, oh, the music in this is amazing, and soundtracks in video games don't get probably enough recognition that they deserve. So I was like, I'll give them some recognition this week, and I'll talk about them.
Nice. Bit of continuity. I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, I like it. I'm a pro, Dan. I'm a pro. We've been doing this for a year now. We're starting to get the hang of it.
You'd think.
Well, other than being the videos on mute. So yeah, I was just doing a bit of doing a digging around, and to be honest, thankfully, Game, the UK-based retailer for video games, has done a bunch of analysis on data. So really, what I've done is I've just taken their data and I'm going to talk about it.
Thank you, Game.
Yeah, thank you, Game. You keep going strong in that retail space. So interestingly, I pulled what the top 20 most listened to video game songs are on Spotify, because there's a real building momentum to listen to video game songs outside of just playing the games. It's taken a life of its own, and listening to music from video games is just something that people do now, rather than necessarily checking out the latest band releases. People are listening to video game soundtracks. They buy video game soundtracks. It's a really popular art form, and people really get into it. So the top three, do you want to have a guess as to which game the top three most listened to songs on Spotify for video games is from?
Oh, now that's a good question. So I'm instinctively drawn to a lot of the retro titles because they're just famous for their soundtracks, but I'm probably in the minority. I know there's a lot of people who enjoy retro video games, but maybe not enough to make it in the top three Spotify playlists. But it's all I can think of at the moment. I'm going to go Streets of Rage. Is that up there?
No, it's not even in the top 20.
Oh,
so it's actually League of Legends.
Right.
So,
yes. Yeah, they have entire concerts, don't they? Yes.
Yes. So the most listened to song is Legends Never Die. which has had 219 million listens. Next is Rise from League of Legends. Third is Phoenix from League of Legends. So Rise has 130 million and Phoenix has 78. So
Wow.
starts to drop quite significantly. But I mean, 78 million listens is nothing to sneeze at. There are bands out there that would kill to have that many listens on one of their songs. So, and what Game have also done is they've kind of roughly worked out what revenue that would have generated from the listens that have been had on the songs. So alone, Legends Never Die, with the 219 million listens, has generated approximately £745,000 worth of revenue, which is an insane amount of money just from people listening to it on Spotify. Some other notables in the top 10, Rip and Tear from Doom, 34 million listens. Dragonborn from Skyrim, 19 million, and Still Alive is 20th with 18 million from Portal. So, yeah, there's a big market out there on Spotify. When I was looking into this, I immediately went to Spotify to see what soundtracks were out there and what people were listening to. And there was just to give you an idea of how quickly this picks up momentum, there was a Spotify playlist made just 20 days ago. It's like 5.5 hours long, songs from recent old school songs, and it already has 450,000 likes on the playlist, and it was only created less than 3 weeks ago. So people are actively looking for this and listening to it. As well, from the game data, which I found interesting, was rather than as well just the songs, there are teams behind creating these soundtracks, and they exist on Spotify and as artists, and kind of the top listened to artists. So probably no surprise, as League of Legends is their songs are the top three. Riot Games music team gets 5.6 million monthly listeners.
Wow.
So just to put that in perspective, that's an insanely high number. Toby Fox is the second most. He gets 1.2 million per month. So there's quite a steep drop after Riot Games from 5.6 to 1.2 million. But I mean, 1.2 million is still insanely high. And Toby Fox did the Undertale soundtrack. I pulled out Sega because that's more going down kind of the retro-y vibe, kind of the music for Sonic, and kind of more arcadey style music. 874,000 listens. They're the 9th most listened to video game music team on Spotify. And Clint Mansell I pulled out as well because Mass Effect, people like Mass Effect, 695,000 listens. So I think what's interesting about video game soundtracks as well is kind of when we talk about video game music, it almost gets lumped together as a genre. And it's not really a genre. It's a way of classifying groups of songs that, they've been in video games. But if you look at the difference between the music in League of Legends and in Mass Effect and Doom, it ranges from somber acoustic to heavy metal. I mean, you can see me and Adam rocking out to the Doom soundtrack on our YouTube channel when we checked out the Doom game. So it's interesting to categorize them together like that when really.
Yeah, it spans genre. Yeah,
there.
And what I think is also interesting is it's how it transcends channels as well. So yes, there's the music from video games, but now with the likes of Fortnite, we've got real life artists performing within video game environments. We've got guest composers contributing to video games, and even these kind of video games performances. I mean, I myself have been to an orchestral performance of the music from the Chinese Room's titles, and it's spanning across all these different mediums. And like we've talked a lot about fashion in games, and I think it's just the same with music in games. There's just such a big kind of sub and adjacent industry to actual just the playing of video games.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the Chinese Room, I was going to come to them as well because Jessica Curry is very famous within the space and has done a lot of work with the Chinese Room on Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and So Let Us Melt, and won loads of awards for the music in those games. And the Chinese Room are very well known for kind of the narrative driven stories, but kind of the music in all of their games is just incredible, and it's very not music driven, but it plays such a large part in those games that people are looking for those songs and want to listen to those songs and are possibly drawn to some of the games because of the music that's being created. So it plays such a huge factor in getting people's attention and keeping people in games and going back. And it's an incredible effort that goes into, like you said, the whole orchestras come together to put these music together. Like that's no mean feat. And Journey is another game which is Journey the game, not Journey the band, is really well known for its soundtrack. And Austin Wintory, who did the soundtrack, spent 3 years working on the soundtrack for the game. Like that's a huge investment of time to do that, but it turned out incredible, and it got the recognition that it deserved. It was the first video game soundtrack that was nominated for a Grammy, and I believe looking down the list, it's still the only one that was in 2013. Like it's typically film, so it was nominated for the best score soundtrack for visual media, which obviously games is a visual media, which is how it got in, but typically it's films. It's always films that get nominated. So Journey kind of stands alone as being the first and only one that has been nominated. It's not the only time video games have been acknowledged at the Grammys. Previously in 2011, Christopher Tin's what's it called, Baba Yetu won an award at the Grammys, but it's the theme for Civilization 4, but it didn't go in as the theme for Civilization 4. It just happened. It was on his album as well, but it was the theme for Civilization 4, and he actually won the Guinness Book of World Records award for being the first video game song to win a Grammy. So, I was saying they don't get the recognition that they deserve. They do get some recognition, but even like you say, looking at this in the Grammys, there's been 2 that have been acknowledged since 2011 onwards, and I think there's so much amazing stuff going on in video game soundtrack that it's not. Maybe it could push on and do more. And
some of those the numbers that you're saying for like the League of Legends tracks and things like that. There are certainly like award-winning artists that are just not getting anywhere near that kind of footprint. So yeah, I definitely think we've probably got a lot more to see.
Exactly.
Picking up some of the points in the comments, Adam's mentioned sounds like an extended experience, which is obviously what we talk a lot about, and this idea of still engaging with a video game IP or a franchise, but in a context away from playing the game. Absolutely, yeah, that is something to be considered. It is one of the player experience touch points that should be. Yeah, it can be considered, could be a conceivable part of a video game marketing strategy or a continued engagement strategy. And also an equally important point that Adam's mentioned is that everybody at home would love to hear a rendition from you of the Still Alive song from Portal.
Maybe next week.
Okay,
maybe next week.
We'll add it to the agenda for next week.
Yeah, add it to the agenda. What else I found interesting as well, obviously we have people like Jessica Curry who are famous in the video game space. We also have recognized bands and artists as well outside of video games who do produce music for video games. So some notable ones that I've pulled out, and this goes all the way back to the early 90s. So Michael Jackson. I bet you can't guess what game Michael Jackson did some music for in 1994.
I mean, I would imagine it was Moonwalker. Was it not?
It was Sonic the Hedgehog 3, apparently.
Wow.
Which I need to verify. Like, I read that, I was like, is that right? But that just blew my mind that Michael Jackson did music for Sonic. David Bowie did some music for the Nomad's Soul in 1999. Kind of makes sense. David Bowie's kind of in. If you told me David Bowie did video game music, I wouldn't be surprised. I wasn't surprised for that one. And a bit more recently, Florence and the Machine was in Final Fantasy in 2016. Bring Me the Horizon and were Death Stranding in 2019. In fact, there was a lot of bands that contributed to Death Stranding in 2019. And it's that also like there's kind of different types of video game music as well. You kind of have the retro arcadey music, you have songs which are like full songs that are in, and you kind of have the background music as well, like in Halo and that kind of thing. Like it's still that is part of the soundtrack, and that people listen to that as well. So there's really wide ranging from what is classed as video game music, and it's it's weird for me. I don't know whether it's the same for you, Dan. Like when full songs have been in games, I can't not think of the game when I hear it. And the ones I always think of is like when I hear Dynamite from Miss Dynamite, FIFA 2003, or Ashes from Embrace. That's FIFA 2006. Like I can't hear that song without immediately thinking of those
Going
games.
back to the game, yeah.
Obviously, they're nothing really to do with the gameplay of the game, but it makes me think of that game because I associate with it and have the memory of that song playing while I was playing the game. So,
for sure.
I mean,
Definitely I hear a lot of kind of late 90s rock and indie music that were in the Tony Hawk games. And I always picture playing those games because those soundtracks were just so prolific within those games. Absolutely.
So that's kind of the end of where I wanted to go with that. I just wanted to, as I say, I didn't think they were getting the recognition they deserve, so I just wanted to spend a bit of time looking into it a bit deeper, talk about a couple of things for people if they want to see more music, video games. So friend of the show, Paul McCaskey, he actually set up a podcast specifically around retro game music. Game music, I always get the Game Music Guidance.
Yep.
So go check that out. If you want to see within the industry, people getting recognized, there's always an award at the BAFTAs for video game music. Spider-Man Miles Morales won the 2021 BAFTA for music in a video game. And also check out Game Audio Network Guild, or GANG as it's abbreviated down to. They always host annual awards and recognize music within video games. So yeah, shout out to everyone who works on video game music. It's an incredible feat, some amazing art coming out of it, and yeah, there's tons and tons of playlists on Spotify. So if you want retro music, you want just the specific soundtrack from a game, it's all on there. Just search for it, and you can listen to your heart's content and give them some revenue because that's the way Spotify works.
Absolutely. And yeah, let us know what you think. What's your favourite video game music? Do you discover anything cool? Let us know. You can follow us at Etch Play on Twitter. And if you've enjoyed the show, then please do look for the follow button if you're watching live, or the subscribe button if you're watching later on YouTube. Next week, we're going to have an interesting show. I've thrown the challenge that we need to have a show next week because we always like to deliver through hell, rain or high water. The Etch Play live show happens every Thursday, but we are going to be in Brighton at Develop, so the UK Games Industry Video Games Conference. Myself, Ben and Adam will be there. I'm actually going to be giving my talk on Thursday afternoon, so we're going to leave it up to Ben and Adam to see what they come up with. If you're going to Develop and you'd like to be a guest on the show, maybe come and find us and we'll see if we can make some room for you. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that because, this is a high production quality, highly prepared, slick show every week. But yeah, give us a follow and tune in next week and see what happens then. Ben, thank you for joining me.
You are most welcome. Thank you for having me.
We will see everybody soon.
Bye.